That was Ian Johnson. Remarkable life he's lived, spending a lot of time in China. He speaks Chinese. He teaches undergraduates in Beijing, and but still, roots in the West, and very interesting perspective he has.
Yeah, I was delighted to have him on. I had not heard about his book, but we got a copy from publisher. Um, as we are, that sort of thing's happening increasingly now as
Right,
people get to know about spirit matters. So we get um, offered authors to interview, and I was happy to this. I mean, he's a real journalist. I mean, he's a Pulitzer Prize winner. He's worked for the New York Times. He writes, so he's the real deal. And I'm sure the book is thoroughly researched. It's
right.
quite fascinating and really readable. It's like 400 pages
Yeah,
of detail, but
yeah.
it's,
He was
it's
actually, I'm reading, he was a reporter for the Wall Street Journal in 2001 when he won the Pulitzer Prize for his coverage of the persecution of Falun Gong. And I'd heard a
uh,
lot about that. I've actually met people from that society. Maybe we should have somebody on from them because
mhm.
throughout Europe and the U.S., North America, and probably all over the world, they're really crying persecution. The Chinese, obviously, and he mentioned they had a sit-down demonstration in the wrong place, probably at the wrong time, and that was it. And
Yeah, well,
yeah,
that was probably a bridge too far for the Chinese authorities at the time. So, but it's fascinating. I had no idea. We all know that China has liberalized in many ways, and the economy went from this rigid, centralized, controlled economy to what he called hyper capitalism almost overnight, which is fascinating. And now we have, Chinese people being in Western universities and doing business in the West. So it was almost inevitable that there'd be some loosening up, and not only culturally but spiritually. And that seems to be what happened. And the Chinese government is smart enough not to suppress it.
right. I
You
mean,
know, so it's,
there are I don't know how many thousands of Chinese students now studying in the United States. They say there's enough Chinese students that want to come to college in the U.S. They could fill up all the universities. And just again to
uh,
give people perspective, America has 330, approximately 330 million people. We are a big country. China has 1 billion, 300
yeah,
million people. So that is almost, to me, inconceivable in terms of population and even trying to understand the various groups and diversity of that population because it is
yeah.
so massively enormous.
Yeah, and when the Chinese come here, um, I'm sure the Chinese students and Chinese business people and people who settle here for a while or for forever have an influence on the people, the Americans they come to know. But it wouldn't be it would be different from when Indian people started to come here and become citizens and students and business people, because they had a living tradition, the various forms of Hinduism that they brought with them, and that's part of the American Veda story. But Chinese people wouldn't have that kind of thing to the same degree. So if they're influenced in terms of their spiritual perspective or religion, it's likely to be from the Westerners, the Americans they contact here. And so, part of what Ian Johnson's writing about, as you pointed out, was not just the institutional forms of religion, like more Protestant churches, but the sort of eclectic, independent spiritual search that I would guess a lot of young Chinese people coming here would be inspired
Right,
by
right.
the sort of spiritual seekers and spiritual but not religious types they come
Right.
across.
Right. You know, Phil, I would be interested and think that your new book, The Life of Yogananda, could potentially be very popular in China because I would think, they're all, like he said, people are considering themselves spiritual but not religious. And to speak about a spiritual luminary like Yogananda and all might be very, very fascinating to many
Well, yeah,
Chinese.
it's interesting because Ian mentions that there are people following gurus, but we didn't ask him. But that could be a generic term for sort of homegrown gurus and uh, independent sort of spiritual teachers that arise from within China. I don't know the degree to which the gurus who have had an impact on the West, like Yogananda, like Maharishi, and Muktananda, and all the others, had any impact on China, and obviously it would be through their representatives now because they're long gone. I don't know if there are transcendental meditation teachers in China. I don't know if there are self-realization fellowship or Ananda outlets in China presenting Yogananda's work. But you're right in the sense that it would shock me to find out that the autobiography of a yogi is not published in China. I would I would guess that at least English language versions of it exist in China, if not a Chinese translation. After we get off the phone, I'm going to look and see if there's a Chinese translation. That would be interesting.
Right, right. And I would think a bestseller in China would sell a lot of books. I
Yes.
mean,
However, they would not cost as much as they do in the West, and yeah, actually, I'm expecting a royalty check from another book from China any day now, and it's interesting because there was a time in publishing where getting a royalty check from China was like you might as well just forget about it. But now business is being done in a much more businesslike and responsible way.
well, well, there you go. Fabulous guest. Maybe our first Pulitzer Prize winner that we've
Hey,
had on.
that's true. That's true. Maybe I'll be the second.
There you go. You got my vote. Uh, and grab Phil's new book, The Life of Yogananda, now available at Amazon and other book
Yes.
suppliers. So till next time,
Yeah.
Phil.
Okay, Dennis.
Bye.